I want you to picture a specific moment, not a eureka moment where you figure out some new app or whatever.
Right.
I'm talking about a much heavier, quieter click. The moment you realize, oh, that is what's been happening to me.
The moment the fog finally lifts and you see the landscape clearly for the first time.
Yes, exactly. That heavy click where you finally have a name for something. You know, maybe it's burnout, maybe it's grief, maybe it's just I'm in the wrong career. It feels like being in a pitch black room and finally finding the light switch.
And that's usually where we think the story ends, right? Finding the switch is the victory.
It is. But here's the thing, and this is what we're really digging into today. Usually the split second after you flip that switch, you don't feel peace. You feel panic, you see the whole mess in the room, and your brain just starts screaming, okay, now I have to clean this, I have to fix this now.
It's a fascinating reflex, isn't it? We treat insight like it's an emergency. And that tension, that gap between the realization and the immediate crushing pressure to do something about it, that's the focus of today's deep dive.
It is. We're looking at this really powerful piece by Jaime Hoerricks, a PhD, titled After the Clearing, Recognition Without Obligation.
Recognition without obligation.
I have to say, when I first read that title, I felt a physical reaction, like my shoulders dropped about 2 inches. It sounds lovely, but it also sounds impossible in this day and age.
It does feel very countercultural. We live in a world that just demands action. But Hoerricks' whole mission in this text is to explore that specific gap. They call it meeting the name without a leash.
Meeting the name without a leash. Okay, that's the central metaphor we're going to be chewing on. Because, you know, usually when I learn something new about myself, I feel like I am immediately leashed to it.
How do you mean?
Like, if I realize I'm stressed, snap, I'm leashed to a meditation app. If I realize I'm out of shape, snap, I'm leashed to a gym membership.
Precisely. We are conditioned to think that insight is just the starting gun for a race. But Hoerricks is asking us, what if you just stood at the starting line for a minute? What if you just felt what it was like to know the name without immediately signing up for the marathon to fix it?
Which is terrifying, by the way. Standing still is so much harder than running.
It is. And to understand why, we have to look at how Hoerricks describes the arrival of this knowledge. They don't start with the brain. They don't start with logic or a pros and cons list.
No, they start with the body.
They start with the body.
Yeah, let's unpack this, because I usually think of realization as, you know, a brain thing. My brain figures it out, then it tells my body what to do. But this text says the opposite.
Hoerricks asserts that recognition lands in the body before it ever really settles in the mind. The body has been carrying this truth long before the brain was brave enough to give it words.
That feels so true, actually. The text uses these really, visceral descriptions, a softening between the ribs, or a sudden ache behind the eyes. That ache behind the eyes, man, I felt that. It's not a headache. It's different.
That ache is so telling. I mean, think about what happens when you're trying to hold it all together, when you're pretending you're not burnt out or pretending a relationship is working when it really isn't. What's your face doing?
It's bracing. My jaw is tight. I'm just staring straight ahead.
Exactly. You're holding a pose. So when the name arrives, when you finally admit to yourself, I am unhappy, that brace lets go. That ache is the muscles behind your eyes finally dropping the weight they've been holding. It's a somatic response to truth.
So it's not pain, necessarily. It's the release of effort.
It's the exhaustion of finally stopping the performance.
There's another phrase in here that I circled, a curious stillness. Not joy, not even relief, really, but curious stillness. Why that specific choice of words, do you think?
Well, think about the nature of a shock, even a gentle one. When a big realization hits, all that mental chatter often just stops for a second. The rationalizations stop. The excuses stop. It's a moment of suspension.
Okay.
And Hoerricks uses this beautiful metaphor to explain it. They describe the truth as something that had been circling for years finally chose to rest on your shoulder.
That is such a vivid image. It's like a bird, right? This thing, this truth has been flying around you, maybe casting a shadow now and then, but you can't quite see it. And then, plop. It just lands.
And this is the key to the stillness. If a wild bird lands on your shoulder, what do?
You freeze. You don't move a muscle.
Right. You go still because you don't want to startle it.
Yeah.
But you're also just processing the weight of it. You're simply hosting it. That is the physical sensation of recognition. It's not some cognitive process of A plus B equals C. It's a physical arrival. You are holding the weight of the name.
I think that's why it feels like relief at first. The circling is over. You don't have to keep scanning the sky. It's right there. But, and here's where the text really pivots, and where I think most of us get tripped up. Hoerricks says this relief isn't pure.
No, it's almost never pure. Hoerricks writes that relief arrives braided with uncertainty.
Braided with uncertainty. That's such a great way to put it. You can't pull the two threads apart.
And the text gives us this internal dialogue that I think just perfectly captures it. Relief speaks first. It says, "There is a story for this weather."
There is a story for this weather.
Oh, I love that line. It's so validating. It's like saying, I'm not crazy. It's raining because it's a storm, not because I'm just imagining water.
Exactly. It validates your whole environment. It explains why you've been cold, why you've been feeling wet. That's the relief. Oh, there's a name for this. But then uncertainty speaks up, like immediately.
Right away.
And it asks, and what will that story ask of me?
And there it is, the stomach drop. What will that story ask of me? Because names have consequences. They do. And this brings us to the central metaphor of the entire piece, the door and the leash. Hoerricks writes that a name, a diagnosis, a realization, any truth can feel like a door and a leash in the same instant.
Okay, let's break this down because this is the absolute core of the argument. The door part seems pretty obvious. It opens something up.
Right. The door is the insight. It opens a corridor toward understanding. Suddenly you can see a path. You can see why things are the way they are. Oh, I react that way because of this. That's the door. It's inviting. It offers clarity.
Or the leash. That's the darker part.
The leash is the immediate tug of expectation. Hoerricks writes that it tugs at the sleeve with expectations not yet spoken.
Not yet spoken. That's the part that gets me. Because you haven't even told anyone yet. You're standing alone in your own kitchen. You've just realized something. And you already feel the leash. Where is that coming from?
It comes from our conditioning. It's the obligation to perform the diagnosis. If you realize, for example, I don't like my job, that's the door. The leash is the immediate voice that says, so you must quit. You must update your LinkedIn, find your passion, rebrand yourself, and be successful by next month.
It's amazing how fast that happens. It's instantaneous. You walk through the door of understanding and snap, the collar is on.
Right.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't the leash good? Sometimes. If I realize I have a health problem, shouldn't I be leashed to the solution? Shouldn't I fix it?
That's the million-dollar question. And Hoerricks isn't saying you should never act. They aren't saying to ignore the health problem. What they're critiquing is the speed and the nature of the obligation. The leash implies you have no choice. It implies the only value of the insight is the action you take immediately after.
So it's about the panic response.
Exactly. It's the difference between responding and reacting. The leash is a reaction. It yanks you. Hoerricks is suggesting we can, take the collar off and just look at the door for a minute.
The text gets a little sharp here about our culture, which I really appreciated. It talks about how we convert insight into assignment.
With alarming speed, the text says.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live in a culture that is obsessed with productivity and self-optimization. Insight is just viewed as raw material for a project.
Yeah, it's like mining. You found a nugget of gold, the truth about yourself. Great. Now society says, don't just look at the gold, melt it down, make a ring, sell the ring.
Right. You can't just sit with it and say, wow, this is a beautiful, heavy truth. You have to market it, or at least hack it.
We have a manager living in our heads with a clipboard. And that manager is terrified of stillness. Because if we're just sitting with the recognition, we're not fixing it. And our culture equates fixing with value.
And this is where the algorithms come in, which the text touches on. But, I mean, this is huge. The leash isn't just internal anymore. It's in our pockets.
Oh, absolutely. The algorithm's the ultimate leash maker.
Correct.
Second you Google a symptom, or even just talk about a feeling near your phone, what happens?
You get the ads. Do you feel lost? Buy this planner. Are you burnt out? Take this online course. The algorithm is designed to convert your insight into a transaction immediately.
It's almost predatory. It takes that fragile moment where the bird has just landed on your shoulder and it tries to sell you a birdcage.
That is a perfect analogy. And Hoerricks is saying, stop, don't buy the cage, don't even move yet. The question, what now, is yours to answer. You don't have to outsource it to an Instagram ad or some societal timeline.
So Hoerricks suggests a leashless alternative, which sounds great, but also really hard. Meeting the name without a leash, what does that actually look like in practice?
It looks like treating recognition as an invitation, not a command.
An invitation.
Yes. When you get an invitation to a party, you have agency. You can look at it, you can consider it, you can decide if you want to go, what you want to wear. A command demands immediate compliance. Hoerricks is arguing that we need to listen before we act, to create a gap.
It's funny because, in a way, doing nothing is the hardest thing to do in that moment. It feels like laziness.
It feels like laziness, but it's actually courage. To just sit with a new truth and not immediately try to wrestle it into a solution, that requires a lot of trust in yourself. It requires you to tolerate the discomfort of the problem existing without a solution for a while.
Now, before we get to the end of this walk, we should zoom out a bit, because this piece, Recognition Without Obligation, it isn't just a random essay, it's part of a sequence, right?
Yes, and the context here is really crucial for understanding why this is so difficult. Hoerricks notes that this piece follows two others. The first is clearing the decks, and the second is what safety would mean.
I love that progression. Clearing the decks implies getting rid of the noise.
It's about loosening the mask, stopping the performance. You can't have a real realization if you're busy performing a character for everyone.
And then what safety would mean.
This is about tending the field where the new knowing might live. You have to feel safe enough to admit the truth to yourself. If you're in survival mode, your brain won't let you have deep insights. It's just too dangerous.
So the logic is, drop the mask, find safety, then the name appears.
Correct. It's a psychological progression.
But, and this is a big but for anyone listening who feels like their life is a total mess right now, the author makes a very specific point about this being a standalone idea too.
Yes.
You don't have to be some Zen master with a perfectly safe life for this to happen.
Absolutely. They write a line that I think is just so forgiving. Every doorway should open without requiring the whole house.
Every doorway should open without requiring the whole house. I interpret that as, you don't need to have your whole life perfectly cleared to have one moment of realization. You can be in a messy house and still open one door.
Exactly. You can start fresh, right at the moment the name appears. You don't have to go back and do the prerequisites of personal growth to deserve the insight you just had. The insight is valid right now, wherever you are.
Okay, so let's say we're there. The bird has landed. We've opened the door. We feel the tug of the leash, the urge to fix it, to buy the book, to change our entire lives by Tuesday. How do we reclaim that moment? How do we actually take the leash off?
Hoerricks uses a phrase here that I think is the antidote to the panic. Dignity in pausing.
Dignity in pausing. I want to push on that because pausing usually feels like procrastinating or avoiding. How is it dignified?
Dignity implies self-respect. It challenges the idea that you are an emergency that needs to be solved. If you treat yourself like a broken pipe that needs to be patched immediately, that's not dignified. That's mechanics.
Wow, you are not an emergency. That hits hard because the leash makes it feel like a siren is going off.
And when sirens go off, we look for authorities. We look for instructions. Hoerricks argues that the question, what now? That panic question belongs to the individual. It does not belong to institutions. It does not belong to your therapist or to timelines. And certainly doesn't belong to the algorithm.
It's about ownership.
It is. If you rush to fix it, you're often just following someone else's script. Here you're sad. Here is the 3-step recovery plan. If you pause, if you claim the dignity of waiting, you force yourself to write your own script.
So instead of asking, what does the world want from this knowledge? We shift the question.
We ask, what do you want from this knowledge? And that is a terrifying question for a lot of people.
Why is it so scary?
Because we're so used to being told what to do. If I realize I'm grieving, the world says move on in 6 months. If I ask myself what I want from this grief, maybe the answer is I want to sit in it for a year. Or I want to change everything. Or maybe I want to do absolutely nothing different. I just want to know it's there.
That last one, I just want to know it's there.
Yeah.
That feels like the radical part.
It is.
Can you really just know something and do nothing?
Hoerricks says yes. You can simply be a witness to your own life. You can say, I see this. It is true. And let that be enough for today. The text emphasizes that choice should grow from conditions. That means you wait until the conditions are right before you make a move. You don't force the flower to bloom just because you found the seed.
I keep thinking back to that softening between the ribs from the beginning of the piece. If we immediately jump to fixing, we lose that softness. We tense right back up again.
We reharden. We trade the vulnerability of recognition for the armor of productivity. We put the mask back on, just a different version of it. Hoerricks is just begging us to stay soft for a little longer, to let the recognition actually sink in rather than bouncing off the surface of our to-do list.
It's really a permission slip to know without doing.
Recognition without obligation.
So for everyone listening, I want you to think about that thing you've realized recently. Maybe it's about your relationship, your job, your health. You have the name for it. It's sitting on your shoulder.
And you probably feel that pressure to act on it. You feel the leash.
Right. To fix it, to hack it, to optimize it. But what if you didn't?
What if you just let it be true?
We've covered a lot of ground today. We started with that visceral physical sensation of truth arriving, the ache, the stillness.
We looked at the duality of relief and uncertainty, the door that opens and the leash that tugs.
We talked about the algorithm trying to sell us a birdcage and the little manager in our heads with the clipboard.
And finally, the choice to pause, to claim the dignity of waiting, and to reject the timeline in favor of your own needs.
The big takeaway here is that there are, as the text says, many paths and none required. You are allowed to have the insight without accepting the assignment. Not right away, at least.
That's the core truth. The insight is a gift. The assignment is optional, or at the very least, you can postpone it.
Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with one last thought to chew on. Something that stuck with us from the silence in the text.
We talked so much about the leash, the obligation, the shoulds, the rush to fix. I want you to imagine for a moment that you could strip all of that away completely. No timeline, no judgment, no pressure to be better.
If the leash was just gone, what would that name, that insight you found actually look like, just sitting there on its own?
Would it still be scary?
Yeah.
Or without the pressure to fix it, would just be true?
And maybe, just maybe, being true is enough for today. Thanks for diving in with us.
Take care.